I guess I want to start with somewhat of an apology. The database with a twist is a foundational training that I've done for years. And honestly, we haven't done it in at least 6 to 8 months. So I want to apologize because one of the things, regardless of your production level, regardless of how many times you've heard me talk about database, regardless of how much you know about database, I think there's a significant difference between basics and like foundational. Like basics, obviously it's like you're learning how to walk, but foundational, any topic that's foundational is how you build your base of your business, right? So it's just like foundation in a house. You build a solid foundation, you can build a pretty big ass house, right? You build a small foundation, you can only scale it so large, you can only add so many rooms to that house. And so one of the things that I'm excited about and kind of get recentered is we're going to be doing much more foundational based trainings because in my opinion, and what I'm seeing, observing through coaching a lot of agents the last 3 years is we've all been very busy and we've all been doing the best we can with the market and the changes that it kind of threw at us. But, and I say but for a reason, I feel and I'm seeing that our foundation has cracked. Our foundation is maybe not as stable as we thought. So I want you to kind of go into a mindset today, just a clean slate. So I want you to take a notebook piece of paper out, take as many notes as you possibly can. We're going to record this. Honestly, there's some things you may want to rewatch after we cover it, but nothing that you're going to hear today is something that you maybe knew, but it needs to be refreshed in your brain. So I want you to think about it, a clean slate, clean piece of paper on what we really feel about the way that we operate as business owners with our database. Okay, so I have a lot of experienced agents, and I always get this interesting like mindset that if somebody is a high producer, again, we don't need to talk about database. We assume they know how to run a database. We assume that they have a strong and healthy database. There's, you know what they say about assumptions, right? So, so let me make sure. I think I'm adding a few more people in here. I'll kind of keep this popped up throughout the session. Hopefully I won't get distracted. So database with a twist is how to use your database to squeeze all the juice out of your referrals. So we're kind of, a lot of the coaching sessions that I am on in the last week or so is talking about the new year already. It's talking about the fact that 2023, our pipelines are already starting to show up. Many of you are having closings already scheduled kind of in that Thanksgiving-ish time. So essentially we have 30 days left in the year. And so one of the things that I want to make sure is when you're reviewing your goals of what you accomplished this year, right? We're about to do a lot of goal setting workshops with most of you that's probably on this call, or if not, you need to go to one, right? And you're going to reflect back. Did I set a realistic goal? Did I set an achievable goal? Was it measurable? All the things that you've probably been taught 1,000 times at one of those goal planning sessions. But one of the simple questions I want you to think about and ask yourself, write it down, is did I squeeze all of the juice out of my database? Did I get every ounce of the referrals that I was expecting? Did I get every ounce of the relationships that I've been building, whether it's been 2 years, 3 years, 10 years in real estate? Have I done everything I can, just like the lemon example that we're using today, like have I squeezed every ounce out of it? Because I know just by coaching a lot of entrepreneurs for the last almost 10 years now, I know you work hard to get leads. I know you work hard to create good experiences for your clients. It has to start then connecting with your database so we can have that ripple effect. So I'll get off my soapbox when it comes to that concept, but I want you to really think about that. That's the mindset I want you to think about going into today's chat. All right, so one of the things, let me move this down because I can't even see my own screen here, is a lot of times when I talk about database, I'm very logical. I'm very 1 + 1 = 2, right? This is how we use a database. This is what you need to do inside your database. But I want us to think about on a Thursday morning when it's raining out, why do we even need to use a database, right? Because most of us, if we don't understand the why connected to it, The what to do and how to do concept is really, we come up with an excuse not to use it, right? There's dishes to be done. There's laundry to be folded. There's buyers to go show houses to. So why in the hell am I going to log into a database and input some data, input some name and contact information, input an email address when I don't really understand the concept of the why behind it, right? So I want you to really think about that. That why is connected to your motivation on if you're really going to use your database the way it is. So one of the things I remember really early in real estate was that before I even understand how to write a contract, before I understood how to show buyers a property, I had this mentor. He was an older guy in my brokerage at the time. And he was like, but you have to have a database. I don't even know really the concept of what a database was. And then I just felt overwhelmed because it was so much work to figure out what database, like technology I needed to use. And then I came to the reality is like, I don't think I knew as many people as I think I needed to have, right? I mean, I talked to my friends, I talked to my family, you know, I had maybe my circle of 20, 25, maybe 100 if I'm lucky. But if you know in this business that 100 people aren't going to buy a house every year from you, right? The same 100 people, right? So, and then the mindset of, I thought I just sold houses, right? I thought I need to be a strong negotiator. I thought I need to have a great listing and buyer presentation. I thought I need to overcome objections. So the twist on this is that you actually are not in any of those businesses. You're actually in a relationship business, not a housing business. And in reality, and the twist of this whole crazy market that we're in and the industry that we're in a truly a database-driven market. And those that don't have a database, that have had amazing last 2 or 3 years, may last another 2 or 3 years. But the challenge will be when the market truly shifts. People are talking about recessions. People are talking about obviously changes in the market and the economy, changes where I have a political season coming up. Will those agents that don't use a database, that don't understand the value of it, don't understand the why behind the database, will they be able to thrive like they have the last 2 to 3 years? That's a rhetorical question. I don't expect you to answer that, but I want you to think about your own narrative or your own mindset about how you work that, okay? So as we go through, so many of you may or may not know my backstory. Before I got into real estate, I worked for Nordstrom. I was a sales manager for the men's clothing division back when I was much younger. I had hair, I was skinnier. It was the time where I worked at Nordstrom, right? So, but one of the things that similar to real estate, the reason why I bring it up, it's not about me, it's just giving a perspective, is that when I started at Nordstrom, and actually I had a similar mindset that when I started real estate. When I started at Nordstrom, I thought we sold clothing, right? I thought the reason why I'm here, the reason that I get a paycheck at Nordstrom is because in my case, men wanted to purchase suits, ties, sweaters, slacks, you know, things like that. But what I quickly figured out, and Nordstrom taught me at an early age, and they transitioned into real estate, is that it also is a database driven. It is when we had to hit our sales quotas, because we had a sales quota every day, which was a history behind what we did the previous year. It was connected to the fact that you had to have people come through the door. So today is a perfect example. In Richmond here, it's raining, right? And if people aren't coming into the store because it's raining outside, you don't make a paycheck, right? So one of the things that I want you to think about is, what if the market shifted and got to a point where people didn't call you? What if you got to a point where in the market that people weren't coming to your open house? What if you got to the point where maybe you're using Zillow leads or Realtor.com leads and those slowed down or evaporated because the market is changing? Would you still be able to have the goals that you set accomplished by sitting the transactions? To give you an example connected to Nordstrom, literally I remember specifically, I remember because it was a Tuesday and I had worked the whole weekend there. I was tired. And I had to hit a sales goal of $6,000. And Nordstrom World doesn't sound like a lot, but $6,000 on a Tuesday when it was raining was a lot. And I'm a goal-oriented person. And I was like, I have to hit my number. Well, what I did was we have a database at Nordstrom where we'd pull all of our past clients and we'd pull all of the products that they sold, the shirts, the pants, the sizes, the colors, the brands that they had. And what did I do? I got on the phone and I called my clients and I would say, hey, we got a new shirt in, similar to the one you bought, but it's in a different color. Would you like me to mail it to you? Hey, we got a new shipment of ties today. Let me text or send you a picture of it. Maybe I could send that in the mail. The reason why I did give that is there was a hustle to that, but it's connected with the quality of service is connected to the highest quality of your database. If I did not know what size the gentleman was, or if I didn't know the color of sweater he purchased before, or if I did not know the size pants that he purchased in the past, my conversation would not be as effective. My conversion rate would be much lower. And ultimately it'd be a cold call and the conversion rate on that would be so low. So I want you to think about in real estate the same way, right? I want you to think about if you had a high quality database, a point where you could pull it up on a rainy Tuesday. You could pull it up when your market is changing. If you could pull it up and you could control your income rather than waiting for someone to walk through the door, how much more freedom you would feel in this business. So I want you to kind of go into that mindset. Okay, that's why I get kind of so jacked up about this topic, because I think we all have the choice. We just have to make that choice, right? So let me minimize this guy. All right, so one of the things that I read a book recently, and there's this quote that I thought really resonated with me, is one of the best ways to influence people is to make them feel important. And I was teaching a communication class yesterday, and it kind of we got into a pretty deep discussion about communication and what the important factors of communication. Communication is really influence. If we're really honest, if we even go down to the core, lead generation is influence. If you're networking with people, it's influence. If you're at a dinner party or a cocktail hour, it's influence, right? Influence is the way that people really in real estate thrive, right? And so we go through this. If you look at the slides, I want you to write down and think about this, right? In order to influence people in real estate, you must gain their trust. And in order to gain their trust, you actually need to make it personal so they don't sound like some sleazy sales call, right? Or something like that. And to make it personal, you must be intentional and consistent. So 1, 2, 3, 4, those are the 4 ingredients of connecting people through influence, and all those dots connected to your database, right? Because a database can build consistency. It can look very intentional or spontaneous, even though it's not. It can actually create a personalized experience for your consumer, and it will build trust to the point where they're going to buy and sell houses with you. And I think along the way, we've kind of reprogrammed our brain that it's about leads, it's about conversion, it's about appointments. It's about influence, and it's about how we connect with that. So otherwise, in like real estate, if you're not going to use a database, and somebody who maybe on this call is like, yeah, I'm not into a database, then you're going to have a transactional experience. And so giving the example, just like Nordstrom, you're just going to have to wait for people to open the door and walk in. You're just going to have to just sit by the counter and cross your fingers and hope to God somebody buys something from you so you can earn a commission, a paycheck, income to pay the bills. Or you can work on that relationship experience and have a much more predictable process, okay? So your database is the most valuable asset. And if you were to look up the word asset, everyone pretty much knows what an asset is. It's physically something that you hold on to that increases in value, right? We always talk about in real estate space that real estate is a best asset because it always appreciates, it always gains equity. It's always something that's going to create personalized wealth. Well, as a real estate entrepreneur, your number one asset is not going to be what your Instagram reel said or your latest top 10 top production award. It's going to be built upon, your biggest asset is going to be built upon your database. So it's interesting when I coach some really top producers and we go into their business and we go look at their transactions, we look at their systems for their buyers, their sellers. Most of them have some solid kind of foundation for those. But one of the most number one things, and that's why I apologize at the beginning of this training, is that we don't focus enough on their database, and they don't focus enough on their database. So their largest asset isn't their database. Their largest asset, honestly, is maybe their influence, maybe is connected to their reputation around town. But if everything went to crap, if the world changed, they ultimately were living paycheck to paycheck, or they were so close to not having that consistent business. So really quick, and I'll get through this slide. Your database is more than a list of contacts. It's a living record. It's of all your relationships. So if you were to say, hey, Drew, I have an amazing database. It's so valuable. It's great. And I pull up your database and it has nothing more than names, phone numbers, emails. I'm going to be polite, but I'm going to be honest with you because I care about you as your coach. That is not an asset. I can buy lists. I can go pull lists from other things. I can Google it. I can get names, phone numbers, and emails from just about anybody if I either have to pay for it and connect it to somebody else. So a database is a living record. It's not just the contacts. Also, your database is a tool to nurture and manage those relationships. And I want to make sure you put the emphasis on manage. I talk to a lot of people every day. I'm sure you do as well. I can barely remember what the heck I wore yesterday versus even some of the conversations. And some of the conversations were truly authentic. They were heartfelt. They were telling me stories about their family. They were connecting with me in a different way, not even beyond business. But my brain cannot hold that much information, right? So if we were to take those conversations, if you were to take all that nurturing conversation that you do every day, because I know you lead with that, and you did it to manage that relationship better, and you actually put them in a database. I literally just talked to a coaching client before he hopped on, and he has a bucket list trip to go to Iceland, and they're literally leaving on Saturday to go, right? And I've heard him say this, honestly, for 10 months, right? And yet I forgot. And the reason why is it's because, number one, it wasn't in my database. I literally pulled it up. And number two is I had no concept of like the time frame of when he said he wanted to achieve that, right? So it's also about deepening those details inside your database. But good for him. I'm excited for him to be able to go to Iceland. So your well-intentioned database provides leads. Your powerful database is managed by your schedule. So I want you to think about this. You can have a great database. You could have good relationships in there. You could be nurturing and managing it. But if you are not connecting your database to your schedule, you're missing the boat here, right? Your database ultimately is connected to your schedule. And what I mean ultimately like connected is you make time for your database. You treat your database just like an appointment. You treat it just like you're going on a date with your spouse or partner or your kids' soccer game. Your database is part of your schedule. And we'll talk about that a little more. So one of the other twists that I want you to think about, the quality, not the size of your database, determines the size of your bank account. Well, it's funny, I've been coached in some different ways throughout the years, and they always say, grow it, bigger, like 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 names in a database. Well, I'll tell you, the interesting thing is, I'm going to slip to this slide and go back, is it's the quality, not the quantity, right? So I have a current client does a lot of business, and it has a database the size of 456 people in their database, right? Now, this person has been in business for 18 years in real estate. So those 456 people are of high quality, right? They are people that she has vetted. They are people that are past clients. They are people that she's loved on and nurtured, those people that she's managed to maintain communication consistently with them. But wouldn't it be easier to work in a group of 456 people rather than 4,056 people, right? So I want you to kind of think about that. So what percentage of your business should come from your database? That should be a question you ask, because you know the size of your database. If you don't, you need to pop off and log in and look at that, right? So it's important that you kind of know that number, right? And so one of the things that I want you to think about, I'm going to go back to that slide, is that you have to know that number. You have to know how many clients you physically have in your database, and then we're going to work on what the conversion rate of that is a little bit further in. But I want you to write down the question. What's the percentage of your business that should come from your database? So if you're reflecting back on your business this year, you can track and see if you're in alignment with that percentage, right? So this is kind of old school. This is stuff that I've learned many, many years ago. There was a book written a while back called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And if anybody knows that book, they know that it's kind of a blueprint for a lot of things that real estate agents do, regardless of the brokerage that they're at. They talk about the 4 laws of lead generation. If you have the book handy, you can pull it up. It's page 188. But one of the things it talks about is build it. So you're going to build a database, you're going to feed it, communicate, and service all leads. I think we all get this. Like, I don't think this is rocket science, right? So build it, though, is the size of it, right? Adding new contacts, making sure you have a substantial amount of people in there, because not everyone wants to buy a house every day, right? But where I think, and communicate, I think that's pretty easy. We do auto drips. We will go into a little bit of more how and what to do with that. And then service your leads. Yeah, you get a lead, duh, I'm going to call them back and I'm going to see, do you want to buy a house? I'll do a little needs analysis. Like, all of those things make sense. The reason why I bring this up and the twists connected to the database is feed it every day is often the most underutilized, overlooked piece of this law, of these laws, because we think we're constantly building something, right? Adding new, bigger, 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 right? I really want you to think about number 2 goes back to the quality concept, right? It's, I'm going to feed it new information. I'm going to feed it birthdays, anniversaries, dogs, pets, deaths, weddings, trips. I'm going to feed it with so much great information that it's going to allow me to have a deeper, more impactful relationship with that client, so I don't come off as a sleazy salesperson. So I come off genuine because I want to have that influence, right? So I want you to just really think about when you're connected to those laws. So again, some of this stuff you've heard, but I think it's important. So one of the things that we talk a lot about in the database conversations is we got to touch them. And I always joke, I remember coaching new agents and I would say the same thing. And I was like, it sounds creepy. It honestly does. When we're trying to build trust, when we're trying to get them to like us, when they're trying to remember us, because, you know, everybody's a real estate agent. There's almost, in the Richmond market, there's 8,000. 5 years ago, there was 4,000, right? We've doubled the size of the real estate agents at Richmond. I don't know where your market is, but it's a lot, right? And so maybe they remember us, but maybe they know 5 other real estate agents, right? So they have to like us, they have to trust us, and they have to remember / choose us, right? So we have to use what we call that touch system, and we've all heard that. But the funny part is, or what I would say the creepy part is you have to touch them often, you have to touch them in different ways. It's creepy, right? But it's true. It's everybody. An example of a touch would be an email or a text message. Maybe I would reply better with an email, or maybe I would reply better with a phone call, right? We have to find the rhythm for that connected to those touches. So refresher, foundational. And it's funny that I say foundational, but I will tell you, if I looked at a top producing agent and I asked, are they squeezing all the juice out of their database? Maybe they'll say yes. Then I'll say, all right, let me see your 36 touch plan, which is a touch system that is really not rocket science, but it takes intentionality, it takes planning, and it takes consistency throughout the year, right? And that's where the wheels on the bus tend to fall off. Well, I send some emails out. Well, I do calls, but then when I get busy, I kind of fall off on the calls. Well, we do events, but we don't always do them consistently. So I'm not going to read these. This is just an example. You can take a screenshot of it. My recommendation is maybe with your phone, or I'll send out this presentation, but you got to come up with your 36 touch. Everybody is different. So all these numbers on the left-hand column add up to 36. I think they do. And maybe you're like, hell, 4 events per year, that's a lot. Number one, that's more than I can financially do. More than that is something I'm wanting to do. Cut it down to 2. Great. Cut it down to 1. I don't care. But what I will tell you is that you need to add it back somewhere else, right? 4 mailers a year. I have some clients that mail something every single month. So that's 12. And they do 12 emails. That's 24. They already got 24 without even trying to get to 36. So this is not a blueprint of this is what you have to do. This is an example of, number one, you need to come up with a plan. Number two, you need to actually have a way to implement the plan, because this is 100% connected to why we have a database, why we want to focus on quality, because a lot of these things on this screen cost money, right? And if I'm going to love on somebody, if I'm going to invite them to an event and I'm going to pay for their alcohol, or I'm going to pay for a pie, or I'm going to pay for the mailing, the stamps, and I'm mailing it to a low quality person, I'm basically flushing my money down the toilet, right? So if you don't have a high quality database, and now we've connected our caboose to the 36 touch, you're literally throwing money out the window, right? So you've got to really make sure that you just don't jump into this as, oh, great, I'm going to do a 36 touch with my entire database. We've got to work really hard to kind of be consistent with that. So after you go through the why, which is what we just did, now we're going to go into the what and the how. This is what most agents want, right? This is what, tell me how to make it easy. Tell me how to use a database in a way that's more effective so I can get some more leads. Totally get that, right? But there's standard systems to making your touch easier and scalable. And when I mean scalable, I mean you can grow it, increasing it every year. I was on a coaching call a few weeks ago, and this individual has grown their business every year, but it hasn't doubled every year. And we were like, well, you know, there's a lot of agents in the market that maybe they sold 10 houses 2 years ago, maybe they sold 20 houses last year, right? And that's doubling a business. They're like, man, I'm a rock star. And they are. They worked their butts off to get those 20 transactions. And yet maybe this year they don't have the 20 transactions, right? So in order for us to make things scalable, so it's consistency, it's sustainability, we do have to make sure the system is easy, because anything that's hard, at least in my world, I don't do it. If there's anything hard, then I might try it, I might dabble in it, I might do it for a month or 2 months, and then I slide off, right? So one of the things I want to make sure is the standard systems that you need to make it a touch system inside your database has to be easy and has to be scalable. So if you're thinking about, let me go back, if you're thinking about this 36 touch and you're like, oh, I want to do all these things. If this looks too hard for you, this is the wrong plan for you. If this doesn't look sustainable to you, then this is the wrong plan for you, right? You got to come up with one that's adaptable. So first thing we got to work on is kind of sorting your contacts. Again, seems foundational, but I am telling you that when I log into top producers databases, they just have people and they just have it in alphabetical order. Well, it's actually pre-ranked already alphabetical order you normally in their technology that they use, right? So the first thing is how many freaking phone numbers you have in there, right? And how many contacts you have in your database. So I don't know about you, but I have an iPhone, and what you ultimately do is I want you to go into your contacts. We go all the way to the bottom of your contacts. And so you'll know how many physical contacts you have in your phone. So how many is it? My phone is a crazy number. I have 5,376 people in my phone. So the second question is how many people do you have in your database? So on average, it's a national average. Most people, humans, not in real estate, just in life, have about 1,000 phone contacts in their phone. Maybe you're less, maybe you have 300, maybe you have 800. I don't know what the answer is. But how many of those do you have in your database? So most basic exercise, now is a good time to do it heading into the new year, is do my phone contacts, the quality of phone contacts. Like, I don't want you to add somebody that's like, I put people in my phone like taxi driver. Like, all right, taxi driver doesn't, maybe he's in your phone contacts, but doesn't need to be like in your database, right? So how many phone contacts of quality that are not in my database? That can be an activity that I need to work on. That's called build it, right? That's that first law that we talked about, but that may be something that you need to start with. And honestly, new agents, you guys have an advantage because you're starting from a blank piece of paper. We're starting from a blank database. The people that really need to listen to this are the people that have been in business for many, many years, because your phone contacts have grown, your database has grown, but have they grown together? I'd be in curiosity, but I would think that answer could be no. Another foundational principle, but it's interesting, it's got a little twist to this, that's why I want to bring this up, is that we have a traditional way of thinking that of contacts in the real estate space, right? METs, people that you know, your sphere of influence, your friends, your family, your past clients. That's a typical pool of people, right, that we know that in real estate we have to have. Not METs are strangers, right? Open house peoples, farming a neighborhood. Maybe you pulled a list from an online source, right? But this is where I want you to look at the twist. If you see underneath the screen, there's a difference between a CRM and a database. And I've been using the word database the entire last 20 minutes. And yet it gets twisted in our head because a database and a CRM are different things. In my opinion, a CRM is a customer relationship management system. A database is nothing more than a Rolodex or an Excel spreadsheet, right? So I want you to really think about that. When you're sorting your contacts or when you're in your database, CRM, we're going to talk about that. Do you know everybody? Because one of the things that I found is that you may need to do these people, separate these people into either two different technology tools or different labels. So I'll tell you here at Freedom, we have it in two different technologies. So my not mets, my database, my strangers, the people that I don't know, we have them in what we call a product called Constant Contact. So my client base in coaching world primarily right now is real estate agents, right? So let's just say there's 8,000 real estate agents in Richmond, right? And I'm going to target those people to get them to become a client of mine or come to a training, right? Things like that. I have all those people that I do not know in the Constant Contact technology. The minute that I teach them, the minute that I have a conversation with them, the minute that I have them as a client or a past client, I now have them moved into what we have a CRM for, right? And so what I'm doing and what I want to make sure is that I know the difference between the two. Because if I know it's quality versus quantity, but I see 1,000 people, or in this example, 8,000 people, number one, it can be overwhelming. And number two, when I'm doing either lead generation or touch communication, I may come up with a name and like, Susie Smith, like, who is that, right? It's call or touch bias, right? But if I know in my CRM, I know all of those people. Let's say again, 450 people are in my CRM, and I know their names. When I see their name, I'm like, yes, Susie, I know her son, John, I know her brother, right? I'm connecting. I can go faster than I could if I didn't know the stranger, right? Think about it in the dating world, right? If you're dating someone for the very first time, you got to go through all the questions and like get to know them, right? But if you're going on a lunch date with someone that's your best friend, you have deeper, different conversations. It's not as many questions because you have known them for years, right? So there's a difference between not met and met in the way the conversation is. So why is it not separated in your database / CRM that way? Then there's just the whole work smart, not hard, right? 12 contacts in your CRM versus 50 contacts in your database will get you 1 lead versus 2. And interesting, it's not like 6 to 1. When I say 12 contacts to 2 leads, you actually have more leads by working with people that you know, and you can sift through 12 people rather than 50 people, right? Just a thought, maybe we should work smarter, not harder, right? All right, so after you sorted, so after you understand the METs versus have not METs, or the CRM, versus the database, we got to make sure our groupings are correct. And again, I know that it seems like this is basic stuff, but it is foundational stuff that is not done. And my recommendation and how I've always run, I was just thinking about this morning, I have 6 businesses I've started. I've had 2 real estate teams that we've done well with and launched. I had a real estate brokerage that we launched and did well. And then I had, and then I have had 2 property management companies I've launched and done well, and then coaching. So what am I? Yeah, so that's 6. Every single one of them, we work the same way. Who is the quality of people that we want to work with, and who the hell are they? What type of person are they, right? So in your CRM, you should have at least 2 groups / tags. Sometimes technology, they prefer to use tags. I don't care how you kind of technology-wise get these separated out. I really want to know the quality level. So interesting enough, I was on a call with another person I coach, and we pulled up her database. I think she's on this call actually. And we pull up her A+ or A's or B's and her C's, right? That's the quality referral. So when I'm deciding on who am I going to mail something to, I pull up my referral quality sorting group. When I decide I'm going to do an event, I pull up my quality referral tag, right? When I decide I'm going to do Christmas cards, when I decide I'm going to do a giveaway, if anything, I want to focus on quality first because I'm spending money on something, right? So refresh, A+, multiple referrals given the year. A is 1 referral, B is no referrals, but they have the potential to do so. And C is, you don't know, you're trying to figure it out, right? But having those tagged or grouped properly is a huge thing. And if we're talking about profitability and you're like, I'm spending money and I'm not making money and I'm not converting the leads and my database is not squeezing all the referrals out, then you may have the people in the wrong quality group bucket. You may have grouped them as an A+ and love you, bless your heart, but you're in denial. Like they haven't given you any referrals. So they're not an A+. They haven't given you the VIP treatment. So why should you give them the VIP treatment? Make sense? Type, that's easy, right? And honestly, most people that I see in database world have a type. Oh, it's a past client, it's a sphere, it's a friend. That's great. But making sure all that's correct. The other thing it does is it helps you figure out really what your lead sources are based on the year. So just FYI on that. All right, so the other thing I want you to make sure, and these are some groups that are types. So going back, it's kind of like a type, like a past client, but we even take it to the next level. So here at Freedom, we want to kind of have these additional tags. So 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 tags that we connect with. So you're like, wow, there's 5 tags / groups that I have to add, right? So we want to create a tag, we call them top 30, where we give them VIP gratitude gifts every month, right? In like the kind of coaching role of like Brian Buffini, he calls them Popeyes. I think they're more than Popeyes. I think the Popeye concept is kind of overdone. I think it's maybe not as genuine as it used to be. Maybe I'm biased. So we call them gratitude gifts because when you're dropping off 10 per month to your top 30 inside your CRM, they need to feel the love. They need to feel like you did something different for them than you would anyone else, right? We also classify what we call a top 100 because we believe you should mail something to your database. It's interesting that people mail to neighborhoods or they mail to just listed or just sold postcards. Again, that's a not met. So we're spending $300, $400, $500 on a postcard of just sold. One time, spend $300. Or we could spend the same $300 and we could mail that something of high quality to our top 100 that like us, trust us, love us, remember us. I guarantee your phone would ring at a higher conversion rate on mailing to your top 100, right? So just want you to think about that. Other 3 tags that are kind of makes your life easier is anniversary month, birthday month, and then we'll go into DTD2. So if they close this month, what are we in? October? So it says October home anniversary, right? May home anniversary, right? Well, the week before the previous month going into the next year forward, I'm going to pull up in September. Again, we're in 2023. In September, I'm going to pull my anniversary tags for November. And so we have 11, let's say we have 11 anniversaries coming up because I sold houses this month and it'll roll over to next month. Now I'm going to have the ability to touch and communicate with those home anniversaries at a deeper level. Is it a card? Is it a text message? Is it a video? Is it a gratitude gift to drop by? Is it an updated, what we call equity report, right? but it prompts you. It makes it easier for you to be able to stay in communication with those people that have home anniversaries. Same concept with birthday month. Obviously, May birthday, June birthday, right? You pull them ahead, a week or two prior to the month starting, and getting those birthday cards out, but getting it systematic to where it's easy for you to do. So DTD2 is something that has been around. I talk about it often because I think it's one of the coolest, simplest ways for you to take your database. I use database and CRM and kind of mix them up, unfortunately. So I'm talking CRM. It just makes it easier for you. And it makes you realize where you left off. So we typically start each quarter at the top of week 1, right? So October, November, December. So we should be, what are we in, 2 weeks? I don't even know. Yeah, we're 2 weeks into the fourth quarter, right? So technically, as of today's recording of this training, we should be working with people with a last name B and a last name E. And I'm literally going to filter my database to those 2 letters. And those are the people that I'm going to call, text, communicate with, and then I'm going to be done for the week. I'm going to do it all the way through the week. And then next week, I'm going to do D&O, and next week, I'm going to do H&V. And the reason why this is done this way is because we want to keep it simple, right? I've been to many old school trainings where they're like, you need to make 20 phone calls a day. You need to connect with your database. No. I get that, totally get that. But how about the fact that you have to still run a business, run a house, be a human, do all the things you need to do. So if week 2 is 12 people, knock it out. See if you can do it in a day or 2. Great. If week 3 pops up and there's 35 people, then that's going to be a little bit rougher week, but you're going to knock it out, right? So I really want you to only stick with the week that you're doing. So you don't get brownie points. You don't get like, good job, you did 3 weeks worth of contacts in one week. I want you to be consistent, sustainable. Just stay in the week that you're at. Only exception to the rule is if you took a week off, right? If you were going on a trip, let's say next week you were, so week 3 is not going to be feasible because you're going to be in the mountains with no cell service, right? Right, when you get back for week 4, you do have to do week 3 and week 4 to catch yourself back up. So in the visual that we're seeing, you'd have to do D and O and H and V going into the week after you go vacation. But the beauty of that is that you know where you left off and you know where you need to finish out, and you have a plan. And I think sometimes in database world we do that. The last thing I always love about the fact that when you do like DTD2 and you do the connections with the touches, my mom always made, like, especially this time of year, she always made chili. And she would always say, hey, you need to like stir the pot to make sure that it doesn't burn, and right? So think about your database and the way you're grouping and sorting all these people like a really big pot of chili. If you're going to do your DTD2 every 13 weeks, which is tricky, it's 4 times a year, and then you do all those other 36 touches, but you're consistent, you're stirring that pot of chili. You're stirring it all the way up, right? You're getting everybody at the bottom. Because I have seen, personal experience, is if I start at A and just work alphabetically the way my technology is like filtered it, I only make it about halfway through. And then I'm like, oh, I'm so bad that I got to start again, right? So it's because you never know. The person that wants to buy or sell a house might have the letter, I don't know, Z. If you don't get to the bottom of the pot, you're not going to know what the ability to convert is, okay? How are we doing on time? All right, so just about 10, 15 more minutes, and we'll kind of open up if we have specific questions, but I want to slide into a few technical how-tos, again, refreshers if you heard this before. Every CRM has a monthly drip email. Use it. It's normally just a checkbox. I don't know why. When I go into people's CRMs, I look at the settings inside all their contacts, and the checkbox is often not even set up, which is fascinating. But if it is all checked off, some of the other things that we see is they're missing emails. So what contact information are you missing from your CRM? Like, what is it? Is it an email, right? Do you need, okay, let's say you are kind of at the, I would say, advanced level, you have the drip email set up. Well, only 50% of your contacts have emails. The conversion rate on most open rates are like 20, 25%. So you're not even going to probably tap into about 100 people, right? So missing emails, kind of a big deal. Seems most basic, but if you don't have all the pieces of the puzzle, does it give you the full picture? Just there's a thought. So what contact information is missing from most CRMs? What is it? So we have your name, you have your email, you have your phone number, you have your address, right? We have your social media accounts. You have all the things that are, quote, technically part of a contact, like info, right? It's addresses, which blows my mind because we are in the address business. If we don't have an address, we can't create a CMA. If we don't have an address, we can't drop anything by their house. If we don't have an address, we can't mail something to them. If we don't have an address, we can't update them with the profitability or the equity report on the potential sale of that property. So, in my opinion, that's a thing that we need to work on heavily. And maybe you should add a tag or group that says missing address. And then monthly, chunk away at that, right? So if you have 450 people in your database, you got that missing address tag, maybe it's 100. Okay, now you at least know what the actual is, and you can start closing the gap. So then it's texting, or then it's going on tax record and doing a little research, right? It's finding those addresses. So maybe we're closing the gap of 100 missing addresses and we get down to 20, right? The more, the better quality, the better experience, right? So this is just, honestly, just a checklist of everything we talked about today. So I'm not going to repeat it, right? So we talked about the tagging, we talked about grouping them by quality versus type. We talked about adding notes and connections. But the biggest thing is you got to know your numbers. You got to know how many people you have in your database and how many people you're adding or deleting. There may be people that are in your database that don't need to be in there. Their sister's a realtor. Love you to death, but unless the sister completely royally screws up, they're not going to give you a referral. It's just not likely. Last couple of things I want you to think about. We talked about like treating your database like an appointment. We use a model that's not always taught this way. And the reason why, in my opinion, is we have what we call time blocking versus work phases. Time blocking is what I've always heard when I've built any business or gone to any trainings. I hate time blocking. And if you know me, you know I do not time block. I go in work phases. And so I use a Google Calendar and I color code my activities based on those. And so new business is green, current clients is blue, appointments, and then admin tasks are yellow, right? And so database lives in the admin stuff. And the reason why it's not time blocking versus work phases is because depending on your day and depending on how much business you have going on for that day or that week or that month, these colors can like bleed into each other and they could be thicker or larger or smaller. New business, maybe you have a lot of new leads, so you're doing a lot of follow-up. Maybe in your day, in your calendar, it's like 3 hours of green. Current clients, maybe you only have 1 or 2 buyers right now. Maybe things have slowed down a little bit because you have everything under contract. Okay, well, your blue in your database, in your calendar, maybe it's pretty thin. Maybe it's like 20, 30 minutes. Maybe it's not large, but you get the concept. All 4 have to be done every day. All four. I'm repeating myself, all 4, right? I need to see all 4 colors every single day. And in my world and where I live and work and function, I have to at least see the blip of the color every single day, because I know that deep inside each one of these work phases builds a different muscle in my business, right? If I don't have new business, I'm not going to have current clients. If I don't have appointments, I'm not going to connect to that. If I don't use my database, like we talked about, I don't do handwritten notes, I don't interact on social media the way that I need to be purposeful with, and I'm not going to have that connected. So I want you to think about maybe changing the mindset of your database just needs to be part of a work phase. It just needs to be part of your daily habit, just like drinking water and eating lunch. It's just part of your day, okay? All right, well, let's zoom through a couple things here. So feed it, we talked about that, but I want you to kind of emphasize one thing is it's kind of like journal entries. Every conversation you have, I'd like for you to get in the habit of doing that. It reminds you, but it also just really shows that you care when you bring something up, right? So it literally had my client Iceland. I put it in my database literally before this this Zoom today, and he gets back on Thursday, and I put a reminder on inside my CRM to remind me to text him Friday morning because he lands physically Thursday night. And I might literally, it'll pop up and I will text this person and say, oh my gosh, how was your trip? Send me photos. How was everything? Are you jet lagged? How are you doing? Because if I'm honest, am I going to remember when he got off the plane? Am I going to remember what day he physically got home? I don't know. Maybe you have a better memory than I do. All right, client events. This isn't a client event Zoom, but client events will help you feed your database if you're intentional. I have been to so many client events, and I appreciate you guys inviting me to them. I love seeing how our clients interact with each other, with their past clients. I love agents. I just think you're in your prime when you're doing those. But I'll tell you, the number one thing that I see when I go to events is you're not intentional to get new information. You're not intentional to feed your database. You're there because you think that you want to provide an experience for your client. You want them to remember how nice you are, right? So they like you and trust you and remember you, and I get that. But what the missing or the squeeze, the extra juice out of an event is that if you gathered information, new information at that event, you could use that for the years and years and years to come, right? So very simple. I think you need to have a check-in process. You don't just show up to the party and start drinking, right? They check in with someone, and that check-in person should not be you. And you should ask them some personal questions like, hey, is this your address? Hey, do you have an updated email address? Hey, we're missing your address, which sounds crazy because I know that we, sold you a house, but let me just pop it in here because we don't have it, right? Or hey, what's your birthday? We want to, send you something to make you smile next time it's your birthday. What's your birth date, right? You can also use a getting to know you better Google form. We provide those to you to show you that. Quarterly, send out those getting to know you better forms, and they will answer fun questions like, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite restaurant? Do you have any food allergies? What do you like to drink? I love the fact that we'll deliver wine or beer to some people, and some people don't drink alcohol at all. Well, how do you know that if you don't ask, right? We also coach you to use what we call a VIP closed Facebook group, right? So only the cool kids get in that Facebook group. But why not do contests about everybody comment below on your birthday month and we'll enter you in to win something? Maybe you can do I don't know, signs, Virgos, Taurus, do fun stuff. But what if dogs, pets, hey, we'll post a picture of your pet. Tell them the type of dog it is and the name. Okay, well, now I'm going to take all that information in those comments and I'm going to add and feed my database. Stock social media is pretty basic, but people tell you all kinds of things on their walls and their reels, right? And then be more intentional on when you're doing it inside your consultation. All right, so we talked about what's the conversion rate of a really high quality database? Well, it's 10 to 12%. And you go, oh, that's not a lot. The hell it's not. That's a great conversion rate, right? 350 contacts, they have 35 deals. And the thing with this is that the higher quality, the same number of contacts, if you were in 350 now, and I were to flash forward in 5 years and you have 350 contacts 5 years from now, that conversion rate would go up because it's squeezing the juice out of it. So it goes from 35 deals this year, 5 years later, it'd probably be 65 deals. And I am not joking, and I have got literally client bases that deal with that, okay? So it has to have a minimum. I do think there is a baseline. If you have 100 people in a CRM, at 10%, I mean, that's 10 deals, not too shabby, but growing that over time might be a little frustrating for you. The number one thing, and then I'll open up if anybody has questions, what CRM software should I use? Well, we coach, at this point, I think we're coaching, honestly, I've lost count. I think we're almost 30 different real estate brokerages, and they use all kinds of software. I mean, I've heard LionDesk, Follow Up Boss, I've KV Core, Command, I mean, you name it, I've heard it. It's the one that you use. And I will tell you, It's what we call the 80-20 rule. 20% of all the CRMs, they suck. They're annoying. The buttons are not in the right spot. The technology is not the way you want it. The colors aren't the way you want it. The sorting features are not the way you like it. But you need to use the 80% that's good. So everything that we've talked about today can be adapted into a CRM. So maybe your thing is not called, inside your technology, it's not called a tag, it's called a group. Maybe it's called a bunch. I don't know. But when you're going through those principles of sorting and cataloging and really deciding quality versus quantity, all CRMs work and operate to the same thing. So based on what we did on this rainy Thursday, I hope you see the twist on how we can squeeze more out of your database. I'm going to stop the recording. I'll be happy to answer any questions specifically about your database. Maybe you're struggling with something to implement it into your database. But I want you to think that initial takeaway is, why do I use a database? What is the why connected to that? Because the what and the how, I'm happy to coach and train you to do that. But if you don't see the method or understand the why behind it, you're not even going to log in. You're not even going to use the database. And unfortunately, you're going to be more in a transactional based world. And when the market shifts, changes, adjusts, will you be able to guarantee there's people walking in the door like Nordstrom? Will you be able to still have transactions, still have a sustainable business, or will you have to wait for somebody to walk in the door? Okay. All right. Well, let me